Anatomy of a Recession by Kendra Sin, Michaela Balog, Stephen Pina, and Kenny Lippage. Political. Housing and Urban Development. Housing and Urban Development bought Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac, two mortgage companies that had 40% of all U.S. mortgages. They became government-sponsored enterprises. And because of the status, these two companies gave poor people bad loans that they couldn't afford. To buy houses. Investment Modernization Act of 1999. It repealed Glass-Steagall Act of 1933. It separated the banking industry from the insurance industry. But under this act, it combined them. The best known example is Citigroup. Citigroup was made from Citicorp, a bank, and it's merged with Travelers Insurance in 1998. TARP was the Troubled Assets Relief Program. It was used to bail out all the banks in 2008 when they all began to tank. The reason why they were bailed out was because the banks failed. The credit would freeze in the United States, and then the economy would tank really bad. It bought $700 billion in troubled assets from the companies to bail them out. $34 billion of those dollars went to Goldman Sachs, Timothy Geithner's, the Secretary of the United States Treasury's old company. The second bailout went to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the mortgage companies that gave all the loans to the poor people. All the loans that they gave out began to tank, were defaulted on, so no one paid them back. They essentially became nationalized by the U.S. government by being placed under the Federal Housing Finance Agency. It cost the United States taxpayers $400 billion.
Okay, so economic. First off, we're going to go with the adjustable rate mortgages, also known as ARM. So basically for this, let's take an average person and a banker. So starting off, we have our banker, and this banker gives a teaser rate. These teaser rates usually are about 1%. Now these teaser rates usually only last about 5 years, but in this case, that person that just got that 1% and now can afford a mortgage in a house is extremely happy. Extremely. Okay, so let's take that scenario and let's take it 5 years. 5 years later. After that adjustable rate mortgage goes up, the person suddenly went from paying that 1% to paying 5%. This person didn't agree to that and no longer can pay their house payment because of this. Okay, now we're going to go to derivatives or credit default swaps. So basically you have a banker, and that banker sells a loan, and he says that loan is good. That loan will not default. And that makes the person that's getting that loan very, very happy. Okay, so what that banker then does, his sly, sneaky self, he says, oh, I want a bonus. So what he does is he says, oh, look, that loan that I sold that person, that was a bad loan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to an insurance company, also known as AIG, and I'm going to buy premium insurance on that loan. And when I buy premium insurance, that means when that loan defaults, which he knows is going to default, he'll get money. So that's the next scenario. Basically, the loan defaults like he had all in a plan, and basically that insurance company, AIG, pays that premium back because he knew the loan would default, and he gets his big bonus. Okay, so lastly, we have shortage of demand. Okay, so this is where just an average daily consumer goes to the store and wants to buy a simple thing like a can of peas. Basically, there's no money. The consumer has no money, so there's no sale. And the reason of this is that because there's no money and there's no sale, this is due to ARM, or adjustable rate mortgages, and credit default swaps. And because of this, that person can't meet the standard of living. So they cannot buy products, and they cannot stimulate the economy.
Alright, so social. So first we'll start off with everyone should own a house. The Democrats thought that people should be able to own houses. Everybody from rich people to poor people to medium class people. But the only way that many of these people could own a house was with the low interest rate. And the loan companies were giving them interest rate of 1%. But what many of these people didn't know was that they were armed. So when the interest rate would go up, these people couldn't afford to pay off their houses anymore because they were paying too much for it, paying for what the house didn't really cost. So then all these houses would be in foreclosure, causing a lot of problems for the economy. Alright, desire for short-run money. Say we have this company or a bank with a lot of executives or board members that are all making $5 million in bonuses. That's a lot of money, but the truth is that many of these companies weren't making that much money. For example, they would probably be making around $1 million. They would be bringing in $1 million. So the company would be ruined because they couldn't afford these bonuses because they don't have enough money for it. So all the executives would be happy because they got their money, their big bonus, making money, but ruin the company. Eliminate inherent investment risk. So we have this banker or investor who wants to invest in, say, this mortgage. He would invest his money into this and then would get money, win or lose. If the mortgage prevails and the payer pays it off, then he wins and he gets the money. But if they lose and can't pay for it anymore, then they also get their money because the company or bank would bail them out. So they're happy because they win either way. They have no risk of losing their money, and they make even more of it.
Okay, how to fix the recession. So the first way to do it is pay back TARP with a high interest rate. So all of the bankers the banks that received TARP in an earlier time have to pay all of it back plus a high interest rate. So let's say 45%. And they have to give all of that back to the government from bailouts. So what that does is makes it so that we make back all of the money that we lost before and more. And yeah. Okay, so the next thing to do is begin to have a free market. So we cannot give banks money anymore when they fail, because that's how the whole issue was started in the first place. So what we need to do is when a bank begins to fail, we just need to let it die. That way there will be the stronger banks who deserve to be there still, and all of the weaker banks will be gone. How to keep the recession from happening again. First thing we need to do is stop appointing corrupt people. So here's the president, and he says, no more stupid people. So that means that there won't be any more people from Goldman Sachs or anything. So all of these people would be sad.
because they're not getting their big bonuses or money anymore. But everyone else will be happy because the economy will begin to be fixed, because they'll be focusing more on the whole economy instead of just themselves. Next, we have to create smaller banks. So we're going to start with a big bank, and you have to break it down into a bunch of smaller ones. And what that will do is create more competition, between all of the banks. So rather than trying to build themselves up and get a lot of money, the only way they'll be able to be successful is to focus on eliminating the banks, so the banks will be less corrupt. What else, the other thing we need to do is connect the salary of the people to the bank's success. So here's the bank, and here is an employee. So we need to tie them together. That way, if the bank begins to fail, the employee also begins to fail. So that means that they don't get their bonuses or anything anymore. And that'll work as a motivation to make sure that the employees are actually doing their job properly and not just focusing on the money. The end.